Hello, BookTube. We're continuing on with a slightly unconventional read-along that I'm doing with David Murphy. I'll leave a link to his channel. We are reading God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens, and we're doing it one chapter a day during the weekdays. We figured we'll give it minute attention because not only was it the best-selling entry in the so-called New Atheist sweepstakes of books decrying organized religion, but also it is by far the most influential one. There are many, many, many thousands and thousands of young men who consider this book to be gospel, ironically enough. So we zeroed in on this one, and the unconventional nature of our read-along extends to behind the scenes as well. Because the unconventional nature of the read-along on the 4 stages that we're doing a chapter a day, that's not usual for a read-along. And the unconventional nature backstage is that we're not coordinating with each other. I don't have any idea what he's going to say about each chapter until I watch his video, nor him me. So it's been fascinating to see what he centers on and what he doesn't, as opposed to what I do. We are coming at, despite the fact that we're both Irish-American 20-somethings, we're coming at Hitchens, the subject, from radically different places, to put it mildly. His perspective is more valuable for being much closer to the time frame of the college undergraduate kid who reads this book and worships every page, ironically enough. He mentions in his first video that he was that undergraduate, and he's much closer to that mindset. And I come at it from a different angle entirely. I followed Hitchens for a whole of his writing career. I tussled with him in print on a couple of occasions. I have read all that he's read, and far, far more. I have visited far more countries than he have, and I've also been to countries that he visited that he claimed almost no one visited. And as was pointed out to me yesterday in response to my first couple of videos in this read-along, my YouTube rabbit hole is significantly deeper than Christopher Hitchens. I guess that's true. I hadn't really thought about it. I forget. One of you actually did the numbers to find out the sheer number of hours of Steve videos that is now available on YouTube. But the sheer number of hours, I don't remember the number. It was large. It's well over 2,000 videos. But the sheer number of the hour count vastly dwarfs the maximum that you can get from Hitchens online. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just have to trust, after having ripped apart the idea of a Hitchens rabbit hole in my first video, I have to trust that no one's going down a Steve Donahue rabbit hole. I can't help but think that would be unhealthy. But we are now up to the 3rd chapter of the book, and this, believe it or not, is going to be a short video because it's a short chapter. The chapter is called A Short Digression on Pigs, or Why Heaven Hates Ham. And the thing is 10 paragraphs long. It is mainly useful as a demonstration of how sloppy and undisciplined this book is, and what a big, great, crying baby Hitchens could be in the editing process. The editors at 12 at the publisher, the U.S. publisher, did not dare to lock horns with the Hitch. If, for instance, an editor or 2 editors or 3 editors or his main editor said, well, yeah, this is entertaining in a mild kind of way, but it's really a footnote to another chapter. We can break this stuff up and work it in to another chapter. There's no reason it has to be a whole chapter of its own. No. The prima donna will have his way. And so Why Heaven Hates Ham is a chapter in this book, which has been called by people who praise it a masterwork of organization and insight. With a squirted out parenthetical chapter that belongs nowhere and speaks to nothing, stuck right in there because its author insisted on it. Like it's like if you went to Notre Dame and you walk through the great front doors and there's a gigantic car park on the inside, and you still have architectural critics saying it is a masterpiece. Anyway, because Why Heaven Hates Ham is so short, and because it is so obviously incidental to the book, you could pluck it out of the book and nothing would be lost. There's not much reason to quote from it, and there's not much reason to dwell on it, so this will not be a long video. The gist of the chapter is Hitchens going on about all sorts of various reasons in his mind why religions militate so much against pigs, against the eating of pork, against the wearing of pork, against even the physical beings of pigs. And the first thought that will come to anybody's mind that knows anything about the history of religion is that mankind has had roughly 10,000 religions. They've had thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of religions. In fewer than 1% of them has there been any kind of prescription against pork. In fewer than 1%, fewer than half of a percent. It's basically, this is a chapter about Christianity, about Judaism and Islam not liking pigs. And it's not really even about that, because a third of the way through these 10 paragraphs, Hitchens mentions that Islam copied its prescription from Judaism. So it's really only one thing, and it just bugs him. It's a very thin, very artificial device to allow him to mention Lord of the Flies, to allow him to mention the Empress of Blandings, and to allow him to animate against the stupidity of this prescription, because when left to their own devices, pigs are actually quite neat and quite sociable. Yeah, when they're not stacked in chain mesh cases, one on top of each other, from the minute they're weaned from their mothers until the minute they die, when they're not stacked there so that they can't ever rest, so that they can't ever unbend or stand up, so that when they urinate and defecate, it's onto the pigs below them. And that's all they know. That's all those pigs ever understand of the world, is that laying down and standing up is painful, and that it periodically rains urine and feces, and then you're slaughtered while alive. That's all those pigs ever know. But Hitchens is willing magnanimously to grant that if you remove them from such gulag conditions and let them roam free in an environment roughly simulating what they would have in the world, they don't act that way at all. They don't act insane at all. Do tell. How amazing. Yeah, when you let a pig roam around in the field, not only do they get bigger, not only do they get healthier, not only do they get smarter, but they don't exhibit any of the kind of psychoses that you can see when you watch smuggled footage of meat factories. And again, as I've mentioned a couple of times on this channel, please don't watch that footage. There's now an ample amount of it on YouTube. Don't do it. Don't watch it. I'm warning you, not in the way that an ineffective parent warns a kid against a vice just to increase their wanting to do it. I'm telling you as a friend, don't do it. You can't unsee what you see in those videos, so don't watch them. Come to your decision on whether or not it's okay for you to participate in the industry murder of these animals that are every bit as smart as you, every bit as sensitive as you, every bit as capable of agony and misery and despair as you are. Come to the decision on whether or not you want to participate in their industrial slaughter on your own, for ethical reasons. You don't have to be shocked into it by a video. But anyway, that's not the point of the chapter, of course, God forbid. No, that was just a side note in the chapter that bugged me, is Hitchens saying, well, when these things aren't being tortured all day long, every day, they actually behave quite normally. Yeah, thanks. That's great. But really, the point of the chapter for me, we'll see. We'll see if David comes up with any gold here in these 10 paragraphs. But for me, the point of the chapter is to show in microcosm what a sloppy and poorly organized book this is. Because Hitchens was allowed to let this thing stand when it absolutely does not belong here as a chapter. It belongs as a footnote somewhere else. For instance, in the chapter that follows it is all about how religion impedes, retards, and hurts physical health, bodily health. That is, of course, a place for a footnote on prohibitions against pigs or whatever. But it didn't happen that way. We must deal with the book that we have. I'm not going to read you any excerpts from Why Heaven Hates Ham. We're just going to move on. We'll move on next time to the next chapter. The next chapter is nice and big. It's not a breather that a lazy author needed to take because he felt like stuffing his book to make it bigger than anything he'd ever written. It's an actual chapter. It's a mess, but it's an actual chapter. So we'll wrap this up for now, and we'll move on to that next chapter. So I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you, Book 2.